This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. In this episode, I talk with personal growth pioneer Jennifer Louden, and we discuss exploring issues by asking questions, the different ways that you can discern if your idea is worth pursuing, and the fateful, bright, shiny thing syndrome. Enjoy the episode. Hey, my name's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have Jennifer Louden. She is a personal growth pioneer who helped launch the self-care movement with her very first publication, The Woman's Comfort Book. Since then, she has gone on to release 6 more books and has been profiled or quoted in dozens of major publications, even appearing on Oprah. Jennifer combines writing with teaching retreats, leading workshops, and creating vibrant online communities for her fans. In all of these, she helps people shape and live their truest life. And it's a great pleasure to have her on the show. Welcome, Jennifer.
Oh, it's my pleasure to get to talk to you and listen to your soothing accent while we talk.
So share what's going on in your world just now.
Well, I was just working on a new freebie. I kind of walked away from that whole give your people something for joining your list. It felt so, manipulative, but it actually works. It's actually a good idea. So I've been working on that this morning. I'm working on a new book. I've been working on that for a few years. I worked on that this morning, and I'm working on a new online writing program. And I'm currently teaching 2 programs and prepping to go to Taos to lead my annual writing retreat. So yeah, it's a busy time and lots of juice. It feels really good.
Awesome. And let's take us right back to where did your creative life first begin? Where did you begin to learn your craft as a writer? And also, obviously, you're now known not just as a writer, but also for leading workshops and running online communities. But where did it all start?
I always wanted to create. I actually always wanted to create and always resisted creating. So it's never been easy for me. I can remember, as in middle school, I made Super 8 movies. I put on shows. I wrote a rock and roll version of Romeo and Juliet. But I also always struggled with the creative process. I went to film school. I went to USC Film School and made movies there and thought I wanted to direct, but realized I didn't have the I was a woman, and that's a really hard thing in the film business, and I wasn't tough enough. So I moved into screenwriting and had a kind of early breakdown. Again, just wasn't tough enough for the business. And out of that breakdown came my first book, which was called The Woman's Comfort Book, and it was published way back in 1992. And so I think the craft came from struggle, the struggle to want to give things a voice and not be able to, and then seeking out teachers or books or experiences and trial and error to see if I could, how can I do this? I think is the question that motivates me. How can I do it? How can I do it?
And from starting on the kind of the printed book, way back then, obviously now you have online courses and membership programs, all these other things as well. But for you personally, where do many of your ideas come from for your programs and for your retreats?
Well, I see that people kind of break down into 2 camps around ideas. I'm just going to tell my dog to no bark. Stewart, no bark. Wants to go bark at the other dogs. And I see that either people look outside of themselves and go, oh my gosh, it bugs me that people are hurting or having pain or don't know how to do that thing. I'm going to teach them or write them or help them figure out how to do it. And I think the other camp that I fall into is something I want to learn to do, something I have learned to do, and then I want to tell other people about. And so my ideas seem to come from my own struggles or my own learnings, my own curiosities more than anything else. Certainly my first book came because I had no idea how to take care of myself. I had no idea what it even meant.
And I love how I've noticed something in your writing, and I'm guessing it's also the case at your retreats as well, where you like exploring things and ideas by asking questions.
I do. That's a great, yeah. It has come, if you read my books in sequence, you can see how that emerged. And I got more and more obsessed with questions. I wrote a whole book almost of questions.
Oh, and was that just because it feels like a natural way when you're working with a client? It's just you can, it's a way to kind of start the kind of conversation, but then it's maybe those follow-up questions or asking the questions in a different and a more nuanced way that kind of really drills down into what makes that person tick and what's holding them back.
I wish I was that smart to do it for that reason. I think I do it because I never wanted to be the expert, because I'm really one of those rebel people who doesn't want to be told what to do. So I found myself in this weird position really young. My first book was published when I was like 27, of being the expert, but not being comfortable being the expert. So I wanted to default more and more, point people more and more towards their own wisdom. So I feel like, because that's where my learning comes from. The Buddha said, to paraphrase badly, don't take my word for it, go experience it for yourself.
And you mentioned something, I was listening to another interview with you the other day, and you were talking about that experience that I'm sure a lot of writers would love to have, where they actually go on Oprah and present. And you actually, for you said it wasn't necessarily the experience that you wanted, and you reflected on that, and you talked about this idea of kind of validation and how it was maybe your ideas of your worth as a writer was being held back because you were looking for this outside validation of what you were doing.
Exactly. And I didn't even know it. And I didn't know it for years after that experience. I think I was on her show in like 1998 or 1999. And I don't think I really started choosing myself and my ideas and designing my business and my life around that probably until I was in my late 40s. It really took me a long time to get out of that mindset of, if I just do enough of the right things, another book will become a bestseller, or Oprah will pick me again, and that will somehow mean I arrive someplace, right? We all think we're going to get someplace, and then it's all milk and honey. And it's really a dangerous idea. And I think it cost me a lot. I like my life a lot more now, where I'm like, I'm going to create this product. I'm going to create this class. I'm going to create this retreat. And I'm going to have the following and the savvy to fill it.
And what would you say are your biggest strengths and weaknesses as a creative person?
Well, that was one of my biggest weaknesses, and it definitely still comes out sometimes. I think another weakness is fantasy. Like, it's so much more fun to, take a walk with the dogs and fantasize about something happening than actually go back and do the chop wood, carry water, break rock kind of work that we all have to do every day. I think my greatest strengths are persistence. I'm stubborn. I'm probably one of the least likely people to have had some of the success that I've had, but I really can attribute it to just putting my head down and going for it over and over again. So it's a real dichotomy, of kind of wanting to give up, and it's too hard, and I just want to fantasize my way to success, and then this real dogged determinism that I have. I also think I'm kind of every woman, so a lot of times I get comments on my blogs like, are you in my head?
And I was reading one of your blog posts, you were talking about which goes to this thing about you asking questions and being very insightful in the way that you ask these questions. And it was 10 ways to discern if your idea is worth sticking with. And I'm sure it's a lot of things our listeners can struggle with, especially a lot of creative people, where we have this bright, shiny thing syndrome, where rather than what Seth Godin talks about, we're kind of going through the dip when you have to put in that hardware, you have to chop that wood, as you were saying. It's so much nicer and easier to feel, there's this new shiny thing. Let's just jump onto that as well. But you sounds like you've kind of worked your way through that and got to the other end with it.
I have, and part of it is experience, right? You write enough books, you produce enough courses or whatever you're doing, and you're like, this is the place where I lose my confidence and decide that this is a stupid idea and I should go do X instead. And you start to notice the signs, and you also build up support systems around you. I have we call it a brain trust or a mastermind group that I helped create that I've been part of for almost 10 years. And so they warn me, you're doing that thing. Or my agent warns me, this is where you struggle. This is where you think it's stupid. So definitely experience and awareness that wanting to leave a project or an idea for most people is really par for the course.
I know that you mentioned that the idea of mastermind and how incredible. I know personally, for me, it's been incredibly important having a mastermind of other people that now know you well enough to be able to say, there's a blind spot there that you're looking at, and you have this program. It's called the Oasis Program, which obviously there's loads of great courses out there and there's loads of great retreats, but this accountability buddy, this stickability thing is often overlooked, and it seems to be like this Oasis program is your kind of way of finding a solution to help people with that.
A little bit. It's also my solution to how forgetful we are as humans. I mean, to be a human is to forget. And so the Oasis is a weekly check-in with yourself, and you can do it live or by recording. And it's a combination of journaling and meditation techniques and poetry, and we return to the same themes over and over again. And that includes, what actions am I really going to take this week on my creative desires? It includes self-care, another thing that we all forget about. Like, oh yeah, how has it been another week where you sat at your desk for 10 hours? So how are you going to remind yourself to get up and move? So it really brings in the big picture and then makes it super specific to the week. And I love it. It's so magic. And women find when they go through it over and over again, because it's kind of an ongoing membership thing more than a program, that shifts really start to happen. And they're always amazed because it happened because of these little daily or weekly steps. And we completely love to dismiss those. We want big, we want sexy, right? But those don't really usually do very much. It's that daily, weekly commitments, waking up, beginning again, having mercy on ourselves.
I love that idea. You talk about the self-care movement, which you kind of help kind of launch as well, and understanding that the idea of being kind to yourself, which I think is a really, really beautiful thing. Have there been any instances that you can recall where a client has come to you, either one of your workshops or has read a book or done one of your online courses, where they've really adopted this idea of self-care and it's had quite transformational events in their life?
Oh, yeah, over and over again. Sometimes to such a point, I'm jealous. Like, wow, I need to listen to myself sometimes. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of a woman who's in the Oasis right now, and she is a pianist. And she almost quit performing because she was so hard on herself. And she also had the wrong teacher at the time that reinforced this. And really the joy of this lifelong part of her creativity had gone dead. And through the different tools in the Oasis, of which I could put under the umbrella self-kindness and small steps, she regained her desire and her joy in performing, and then she could stick with it, right? And then she could go to more heights. But it wasn't the achievement that mattered so much as staying with it and allowing herself to continue to learn and perform.
And on this creative journey that you've had, can you tell us about any insights or light bulb moments in your life where you've kind of gone, okay, this is the direction I need to go, or this is an important decision I need to be making at this point?
Oh God, I feel like there's so many of them. I feel like the one that I have over and over again is stop whining and start working. But I think another one is that it kind of goes to that bright, sexy thing that we've been talking about. And for me, it was realizing that I do need the occasional retreat. I do need to take classes with other teachers, but it's the regularity of a creative work schedule that actually produces the best results for me. So it was giving up sort of I'm going to be this wild and crazy writer. And, I look like a woman who lives in a suburban neighborhood, a very cool suburban neighborhood, however, with great design. And I get up and I do my stretches and my yoga and I meditate and I make my coffee and I sit down at the computer. I turn on Freedom software and I know how long I'm going to work that day, or how many words or what chapters I'm going to finish or whatever. So it's again, very prosaic, but that's really been the aha for me. And when I want a shortcut to that, I get really suspicious.
And has there been a time, obviously people looking from outside, see someone like yourself, very successful author and coach and trainer, but then it's easy for them to think that their back shop should look like your front shop, and think, how is she doing? So can you share with us a time when you worked on a project, you gave it your heart and your soul, but for whatever reason it just didn't work out like you'd hoped, and more importantly, what were the lessons that you took away from that experience?
Oh God, we could talk about that for hours. We could look at my hard drive, how many book proposals got started. I excitedly called my agent, this is it, this is the next book, and it fell apart. Whether because the idea wasn't there, or because I wasn't sufficiently interested, or because I was trying to do something I thought I should do for the marketplace. So that's one whole category. I've had books that haven't done well. I wrote a book called The Pregnant Woman's Comfort Book. It was my fourth book, and it was my agent's idea. And she was like, this book is going to be huge. It wasn't huge. I think it sold 30 or 40,000 copies. And the publicity was completely screwed up by my publisher, which was a very important lesson in, you actually can't just trust people when they're not getting back to you. You really do have to be the squeaky wheel. You have to allow yourself, I guess, what women are often called a bitch for doing this. And I was so nice, and I was such a good girl, and I was so like, I just want everyone to like me. So that was a big lesson on that one. And then I've had lessons where I've partnered with the wrong people because I wasn't owning my own success and power. And so I partnered with people who I either didn't really trust or who weren't at the same level that I was. And I gave too much of the store away to them. So that was one I had to learn over and over again. Really embarrassing.
And you now have this body of work behind you. Was there a time when you kind of realized maybe the importance of having a body of work behind what you were doing, rather than just lots of ideas, lots of half-dug holes, but you actually had some things behind that you could be proud of?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, since I've been doing this for like 25 years, that it's really been recently. And it's a sense of time ticking. I'm 53. I have friends who have died this year. I have friends who have barely escaped death from serious cancers. And it's really woken me up to what is my legacy? I don't like that word, but what is the body of work, and how does it need to be completed, and what needs to be added to it? But it's something I really rejected before. And now I'm very excited about it. And the Oasis is part of that body of work.
Is that because of that word legacy has maybe certain connotations to it? Is it feel like quite a heavy word, or?
Yeah, exactly. Stuffy.
Stuffy, yeah. It feels like an old library, or with cigar smoking people in it or something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's amazing. Obviously, you've built this body of work over time, but in those kind of early days when you were moving from a screenwriter to the books you're known for today, what was holding you back from taking that step to kind of getting that first really important book out?
Oh my gosh, I had my entire identity was wrapped up in wanting to be a successful screenwriter. I cannot convey to you how scary it was to walk away from screenwriting, and how long it took me. I would go back, I would try it again, I would try working with other people. I did some television writing. I wanted that badly, which is fine. We should want things badly that we're working for, but I equated it with myself. Like, this is me, and I will only be worthwhile if I accomplish this. So while this other idea kept trying to break through, it took me 2 years to write the book proposal. And some of it was growing into it and researching it, and some of it was very appropriate, but some of it was me not being able to see another alternative. I watched my husband go through this. He works in large-scale conservation in the Great Plains of Mexico, North America, and other parts of the world. And he worked for the Nature Conservancy for most of his career. The Nature Conservancy, big brand, everybody knows what it is. And when he left them to do other work with a very tiny organization that nobody knows the name of, that was hard. It was really hard. He had to work through a lot of who am I?
So it's almost, I mean, you mentioned like meditation and Buddhist kind of thought at the start, it's almost becoming, being defined by your position or your job, rather than necessarily really who you are behind all of that.
Exactly. And, you know, I was young and it's a natural mistake to make, but it's something we have to reckon with, I think, our whole lives, that we are not our work. Our work is an expression of what we care about or interested in or want to solve in the world or want to make better. And that's beautiful, but it's only part of the picture. And it has nothing to do with our self-worth as human beings. And I'm proud to say I think I really know that now. But
And
it
what,
took a long time.
and one of the things, obviously, you're now teaching, other people in terms of improving their writing, their creative writing as well. What are some of the big changes that you have noticed over from that very first book to, the books that you've got now in terms of the industry or the approach or how this? I mean, I suppose you may be. If you are thinking about a bookstore, going into a bookstore, not that many people probably still go into bookstores, they're buying so many of them online anyway, but I guess you'd be in the kind of self-help kind of category as well. So that category or the other writers who are your peers, how have you seen things change over the years?
Oh, dramatically. When I started out, for the first 10 or 12 years of my career, I made six figures, $150,000 a year just from my books, from my royalties and my advances, sometimes $200,000 a year. And the rest of my income was from speaking. That world is gone for most people because books just don't sell in the same quantity because our attention has fragmented because of the internet, because of the way the economy has shifted and will continue to shift. So now I make most of my living from teaching workshops, retreats, and online courses. And so I think for most creative writers, having to have multiple streams of income and know how to kind of have at least somewhat of a business hat that they can put on is imperative unless they want to work, through a university, which can be wonderful again, but for most people, it's not available to them at the level where they can make a good living. So they need to be more creative and develop some marketing and sales skills.
It sounds a little bit almost like the record industry, where
exactly.
so much of the record
different.
industry,
it's been disrupted differently, but there's a lot of similarities. Yeah.
And in this journey that you've had, what's some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh, you know what? Long, long ago, I went to my publishers had a how to be in business, kind of think of yourself as a business for all the people they published. This was HarperCollins, and I went to it, and someone said, I don't remember who, you need an email list. And you need to publish to it regularly. And that was probably 1998, 1999. And I'm so glad I listened. And I made mistakes over the years. I had the wrong software. I lost a huge part of my list at one point. But the fact that I did that and I recognized that things were shifting, not super clearly or strategically, but in some part of my being, and acted on it. That was probably the best business advice I ever got.
And so this importance of the email, it's funny, I hear it time and time again, and then sometimes you'll hear detractors. I remember 7 years ago, someone said to me, oh, well, the thing is, email is going to be on. It's not that important. It's all going to go. And then, 4 years ago, everyone said, it's going to all social media. Everyone's going to go into, it's just going to be MySpace at that point, or it's going to be now Facebook. But it still has such a value because you're not on you're not renting someone's land essentially to have that relationship with you. It's like the Warren Buffett quote. He said, you should always have a direct relationship with your customer. And I suppose with that email, you have that direct relationship with your readers to
That's
develop
exactly
over
right.
time.
Plus, we're seeing social media gone almost completely to pay to play. So my blog post used to get regularly 400, 800, 1,000 shares. Our open rate has not gone down, but the sharing on Facebook has increased dramatically. And that's because of how they've changed their algorithm. And that's just going to keep happening. And it's also we've gone to, let's watch cat videos. Let's watch, I saw a cat massaging another cat. It was so cute. But if we don't have our own way to be in touch with, a variety of ways, but especially email lists, to be in touch with people who want what we are talking about or teaching about, preaching about, I think we're going to be in trouble.
So you're teaching these different modalities. You're teaching in the written word. You're teaching at live events, that those kind of experiential side. And so I'm imagining now, maybe it's with the online courses where you're using video as another kind of medium to be able to teach what you
sometimes
have.
Sure, yeah, sometimes.
And for a writer like you, where do you see video in terms of being able to also promote, to bring in new people into that list and to tell more people about what you're about and the ideas that you have?
Well, I think if you're comfortable doing it or can learn to be comfortable doing it, I think it will continue to have a huge impact on building your list. It's harder because people have, the way YouTube and Instagram and Facebook are set up, they're trying to make it difficult for people to click through to your site. So the workarounds on that, they're only so good. And so we don't see it directly leading to signups the way we would like for the list. But I love to be on video. I love to talk to the camera. I'm a ham. So it's a great way for people to connect with me. So we go back and forth on how much to use video. And usually what I'll do is I get an idea and I just shoot it and I put it up on Facebook and send it to my assistant to put up on YouTube. And, we add some links and hope for the best. So it's not the most measured approach.
And is there a personal habit that you think contributes to your success as a teacher and a writer?
I think the most important personal habit that I practice in different ways is awareness that the different feelings and thoughts that pass through my consciousness every day just keep on passing through. They don't define me. They're not me. So I'll give you an example. This morning, I was having an allergy attack from hell, and I just wanted to go back to bed, and I felt awful. But I knew that I could do a little self-care. I could make some nettle tea, I could make some breakfast, and then I could come back to my computer, that I didn't have to be defined by feeling ill in that moment. Or when the critic gets really loud in my head, what are you doing spending all this time on a book that might not sell? And, God, this is such a stretch, and I can't believe you're doing this. I know to let that part of me just give it a hug. Let it be heard and not get snared by it. So that by far is the most important thing I practice every day.
And do you have an online resource like an Evernote or a Scrivener that you absolutely love to use?
Yeah, two things I use. I use Todoist, which there's a free and a paid version. And if I have something to do, I write it in Todoist and I put a date on it. That is imperative. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It gets forgotten. And then I also use Evernote. I write all my blog posts in Evernote. I create files and clip for different conference ideas or retreat ideas. So those are the two tools I use the most for sure. And then I use Scrivener. Yeah, absolutely, for my book.
It's funny. I mean, we've had a lot of different guests, a lot of writers actually on the show recently, and Scrivener's keeps coming back time and time again, and it doesn't seem like the most high tech of tools, but it seems to be writers just love working with it. It's just something.
Yeah, you don't need to use. They've made it way too complex, so don't be overwhelmed. Watch the tutorials on the site and use it at its most basic level, and even that will blow you away because you can move stuff around, and it's not all lost in a big fat Word document. And you can see it, and that you can see your scenes, you can see your chapters, you can move them around. It's phenomenal just for that.
And if you could recommend one record and one book to our listeners, what would they be?
One music, like record CD?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will be maybe an odd one for people, but I listen to a lot of kirtan or chant. And so Krishna Das is my guy. Any of his albums or CDs or whatever we call them now, that's what I listen to. And then I have two books because I couldn't pick just one, man. And one would be The Essential Rumi, Rumi's poetry. He's a Persian mystic from the late 13th century. And The Writer's Portable Mentor by a writing teacher that I love in Seattle called Priscilla Long.
And what is it about the Rumi book specifically that you love?
Oh man, every time you read one of his poems, you're reminded of what's most important. You touch that ineffable place of awareness and love, and you can pop out of your own suffering and remember the others and how to serve others. And yeah.
Love it. And we'll put all these at the show notes. People go to jamestaylor.me, just type in Jennifer Louden, and you'll be able to get all these links here as well. So, final question for you, Jennifer. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and had to start from scratch. So all you have are the tools of your trade, Scrivener, Evernote, or you have a computer, and the knowledge that you've acquired, but no one knows who you are. You have no list. How would you restart?
Do I have my memory? I know who I am.
You know
right?
who you are. You know it, but
Okay.
no one knows who you are.
No. I would start building relationships. I would think about what is the creation that I want to make next, and how can I start building relationships so that I can find people who are going to want it when it's ready.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show. What is the best way that people can connect with you and learn about everything that you're doing just now?
Yeah, just come to jenniferlouden.com, and soon we'll have a new freebie for you when I finish writing that and creating that. But in the meantime, you can join our list, and we have lots of great blog posts every week. I write one great blog post. This week's a really good one.
It's a great post. We'll put it in the show notes. It's an awesome post.
Great. Yeah, and the one that I wrote for tomorrow is really good too.
Great. Well, Jennifer, I wish you all the best with your future retreats and the next book and your online course and Oasis and all these other wonderful things that you're doing for people out there as well, to allow them to live their truest life. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.